Let's go! Die hard defensive film study today. I'm going to need your help, guys, because we need to figure out what happened to LSU's defense in 2020 and what we need to fix for 2021, because all signs indicate that LSU is going to run a similar 4-3. And really this play, but how LSU defended basically this exact run the year before against Alabama, but in Dave Aranda's 3-4 front. And the first thing is obviously LSU is getting blown out in this game, okay? So it's 45-14, and judging by the effort that we showed on this play, it is pretty obvious that we had essentially kind of sort of given up, as did all these fans, rightfully so. It's cold. This is, where run fits become very important. And we're going to get into two gap, one gap, so many different things. We're not going to get too technical, but I've been going on live streams and saying this, and I feel like we need a visual representation of some of the things that we have been discussing. One guy in particular that really failed us on this play was a starter on the 2019 National Championship team. I saw this on James Light's Twitter account. He's the best X's and O's follow on Twitter. Once again, I'm not a coach like him. I'm not, Wynn, Baldinger. I'm not one of those elite film study guys, but I'm going to try my best. That's why I need your help in the comment section after this video is over. So, the basic philosophical difference between a 4-3 and a 3-4, for either one of these to work, you got to have personnel. So I know you came here for my analysis, but I want your analysis just from the get-go. If you're watching this on the premiere, let me know in the chat whose fault was this on this play, and just make your own conclusions based on these two replays plus the end zone camera view I'm going to give you, and then we'll get into my analysis. I'm very interactive. I like what you guys have to say in the comment sections, and this is very important. I'm not a player or a coach. I don't know as much as these guys. These are just my best educated guesses as to what happened on these plays, and the reason why it's so important to break this down objectively is because, we have a team that could go potentially to the national championship game next season, and we've got to fix these issues. Let's get into it. Let's go. So it started off, obviously, with Miller Forstall to the right side of the formation. He comes to the left side, and Jacoby Stevens gets on this edge. And in just a second, I'm going to show you why I would prefer Jacoby Stevens to actually just stay right here. So we're a little flat-footed to start right here. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run this, and this is really the most pathetic thing. I go back to, just a basic idea, is that we don't want to give up easy touchdowns. And the one thing the LSU 2019 defense did a really good job of against Najee Harris is that they made sure that they at least made him work for the yardage. And we're going to show you that in just a second. You notice he gets the football. He doesn't have to make any cut. He gets the football, and he's able to plant and just go straight through. What the 2019 group did a great job of is filling and two-gapping these holes right here to where Najee Harris wasn't able, he had to sit and dance and wait for holes to open up. And this was a consistent problem, and a downside of the 4-3 defense is when you're telling your guys to penetrate and get one gap upfield, it allows these huge holes to open itself up. So you notice he was able to plant, and from right here, you can just tell he turned he's walking here. You see, he is walking into the end zone. So that was a big problem with the LSU defense last season. It wasn't just that they gave up a lot of points and a lot of explosive plays. It's that it was very easy for the offense. A lot of walk-in touchdowns, okay? And the best way to really, evaluate a run play is from the end zone camera, okay? Now, once again, we get Miller Forstall in motion, all right? Now, for me, I don't understand why teams continue to do this, right? Is bring this safety, this edge defender, all the way here, right? Because what happens is with this edge guy is if you leave him right here, he could still keep contained on this edge while also helping inside run support. But if you line him up on the edge, unless Najee Harris bounces to the edge, you lose an extra interior run defender, right? So by having this guy play back, you're able to get two things out of one. You can keep contained while also supporting interior runs. But if you put him right here, all he can do is guard this, okay? So that's one thing, I prefer. I don't like too many guys lining up at the line of scrimmage when they don't need to, right? So we go back here. That's the first thing that bothered me about this play. Now, the second thing is obviously, and that's not on Jacoby, that's just what he's trying to do. Glenn Logan was an issue last season. He wasn't nearly as good as he was in 2019. He missed the first two games for, I don't know why he was on the sideline, so I don't know if it was, Rona reasons, but, he was doing something different than what he did. He was a starter in the 3-4, and what the 3-4 was essentially Tyler Shelvin would line up over the center. Glenn Logan would normally be in a 4-eye right here, and we would have Rashard Lawrence, Neil Farrell, Fehoko, whoever you want to mention, would be this 4-eye, and we would have Kayvon Chaisson on either side of the formation playing the outside backer position in that defense. So just to show you really quickly, here's Rashard Lawrence right here, and this actually is Glenn Logan, and this is Neil Farrell lined up on this nose, and Patrick Queen, Kayvon Chaisson, and another backer, and we stuffed this play. We actually made a tackle for about 3 yards of loss. So as you can see, this is a light box, and we'll get to this in a second. But as you can see, Logan's job was just different last season. The 4-3, we have two traditional defensive ends and then two traditional defensive tackles. For this 4-3, for a 4-3 to work in general, you got to have some beast at defensive tackle. You look at the great 4-3 defense of the past. 03 LSU had Lavallee and Williams up the middle with Swagoo and Hill on the edges. And then 07 LSU, obviously, Glenn Dorsey, the greatest of all time, was with Marlon Favorite. Big Fave, very underrated. Also a great rapper. But, it's very important to have guys up the middle who can be beast. But this is where the play breaks down, all right? It was actually Glenn Logan that really failed LSU on this play. So the first thing is, once again, this gives you another angle here. Micah Baskerville and Jabril Cox, there is no reason for them to be looking to the left over here. Once again, you guys saw from the other angle, we have 4 guys to defend the pass there. We need you to worry about this. So there's no reason for them to not look. And what you'll see is right off the start, you notice they are both flat-footed, okay? Everyone else already has a jump. So our backers who are going to be filling these gaps are already a half a step behind the play, and that's going to prove to be costly in just a second. Once again, in this front, if Ali Gay has contained, which he does right here on the edge, we need Jabril Cox to be more focused on this backside B gap. It's okay if you're lined up here, but we need you right here, because if he was right here, he could have helped out and caught Najee Harris on the back end. But because he wasn't, you notice he's so flat-footed, it's just not even there. Now, so how did Sark know that this play was going to work? Well, it was all year long that LSU struggled with the backside B gap on run. So what essentially Alabama did differently was they pre-snap with this tight end, and they intended to run through this backside B gap with flipping this tight end. This was a little bit different. What you'll see here is Missouri's actually pulling these guys, but bottom line, all season long, LSU simply just could not stop runs through this gap. We go to the next slide here. Our defensive ends, wrong arms it. We'll get into a film study about what that means. But essentially, you notice how easy linemen that we had were just washed out of plays. They're getting to the second level, and we're just getting destroyed. And look at how open this gap is. You would never see this in Aranda's 3-4. You simply wouldn't. Gaps like this one remind you of the run you're watching right now. And then, it's the same thing you're going to hear us keep saying. There wasn't any cuts or anything. Roundtree just got this ball planted and went. And you see how easy that is? So whenever you see this on film, you begin to start attacking things differently and more creatively, and that's what Sark did here. We get to here. This made no sense to me. This is probably the most baffling part of this play, okay? One thing Dave Aranda did a really good job teaching his nose tackles was do not let these guards, especially Alabama's guards, to get to the next level easily, okay? And for some reason, Glenn Logan fires off and guards the backside A-gap. So not even the play side A-gap. He fires off slow, and he takes a step, and it looks as if this is intentional. Now, if he was taught in this situation to take... So in this scenario, we need to make sure Glenn Logan is firing off into this guard to make sure he can't get to the second level and holding this backside A-gap or this play side A-gap. But instead, he fires off, and this is exactly what Alabama wants. They get their guard a free release right here, okay? So Baskerville is stacked. His job is this gap. Andre Anthony, his job is this gap. Jacoby Stevens, his job is this edge. So we should be able to, we're lined up just fine to stop this play. But once again, for whatever reason, Glenn Logan leaves this A-gap and fires off, not explosive, fires off high, allows himself to get blocked, and you notice what happens here. This gap is wide open. And because the offensive guard was able to get such an easy free release to the second level, once again, Bama's offensive linemen, they are so good at this. Notice how they are in unison. Look at that step. Great steps all around. Low. Once again, this is late in the third quarter of a blowout. This is the starting offensive line. Look at how low they are. Just an excellent get off. 65 communicating with Dickerson. And he knows that this play is supposed to go through this side B gap. And because Glenn Logan, once again, this could be what he was told to do, to leave his A gap, fire to the opposite side A gap, which it doesn't make any sense when we have all these guys on this side of the formation. He fires off, just lollygags basically, and 65 gets a good easy release on Micah Baskerville. Baskerville does an actually smart thing to do. He swim moves over the top and tries to catch Najee Harris from behind. This honestly reminds me of their free play to TJ Yeldon, left side of the formation in the same end zone. Their guard was able to get to Kevin Minter, and Minter chose to do the same thing. He tried to get underneath it to catch TJ Yeldon, couldn't get there. So Baskerville does a good job shedding this blocker, even though he probably should have fought over the top to get to that B gap, but because it was such a quick release and he got beaten. And once again, just to show you how important a half a step is in a play, once again, Baskerville and Cox, for whatever reason, is looking to the left here, not looking at the football when it's snapped, and they're already a half a step. So you see how important this step is. That half a step, now Baskerville is late to react. Logan doesn't get a piece of the guard at all, so now we got a clean release. So Baskerville does a smart thing. He knows he can't fight over the top. He'll just get sealed inside, so I'm just going to try and beat him in the inside and catch him. He tried his best, got a hand on his hip, and once again, but this is bad, all right? And obviously, Andre Carter and all these guys that are way smarter than I'll ever be when it comes to football will see this and be like, we got to fix this. Hustle, everything, it's just not good, and we're half a step. Jabril Cox, if he was really a part of this, he's fast enough to run across here and make this play, but we're so late. Plus, he doesn't like getting dirty in the run game, and he's walking into the end zone. This is just a really pathetic rep all around. Pathetic. Here's Ed Orgeron, and obviously, he's fired up or pissed off about this. Would be too. And then look, Alabama just celebrating, and this is something else. This is a sign of a unit that doesn't believe in the scheme. They don't believe in themselves. And you'll see here, We're late. We're flat-footed. And we get an easy walk-in touchdown. But notice this. No communicating. Okay, whenever there's a bust like this, we should be talking to each other. Hey, who's gap? What's going on? We're no communication, no nothing. And this is a sign that a team gave up on the scheme. They gave up on the game. They gave up on everything. So I want to share something about Andre Anthony's role in this play. So my background as a football player was I was an undersized 4'3" defensive tackle, and I would occasionally play some defensive end as well. So I liked being an attacking defensive lineman. I like getting upfield, and I like making plays. Well, Dave Aranda's 3-4 concepts, and we'll get into Dave Aranda in just a second, his concepts are different, okay? He likes his defensive linemen to be stalematers. They don't want, Dave Aranda doesn't want guards and tackles and running backs to get to the second level easy. And what his defenses did a really good job of, and we'll show you in just a second, notice how easy Najee Harris just ran through this gap, okay? This was not rocket science for him, okay? 99 out of 100 running backs would have scored on this play, but Najee, of course, being special, made it easier. He was able to just walk in, right? So the play was so well blocked, but it was also helped out by scheme. And once again, me as a 4-3 in, my job was I was responsible for contain or my gap. I was going to get upfield and make plays. Well, Dave Aranda likes his defensive linemen to two-gap. And essentially, what his defensive end would do, and once again, it's different because he didn't have a lot of traditional 4-3 hand-on-the-ground defensive ends. This would be, in essence, a defensive tackle. But notice what also helped this play was Andre Anthony firing off upfield and setting the edge while also penetrating into this gap. The downside of this, and why I think 4-3 run fits are really hard in the modern game, is if you just fire upfield and one gap it, if you're going up against a good tackle like Leatherwood, he's just going to outstrength you and wash you out of the play. Also, you're only allowing yourself to impact the play if this running back were to go through this gap, okay? So what an Aranda defensive lineman would do would be to fire off, extend, hold that contain, and see if the running back was cutting inside. But you see, because Anthony ripped underneath it and just set the edge here, it doesn't give him the opportunity to essentially two-gap this play, okay? And this is where, I hear this all the time. 4-3, 3-4, it's the same thing. It's not, because there is so much that goes into the philosophies and the techniques of how your defensive line run fits. So we had so many things go disastrously bad on this scenario. Linebackers flat-footed. For some reason, our defensive tackle firing off and just kind of... And then Andre Anthony, who's actually playing this rep how he's taught, firing off upfield. I think we did a film study on a run earlier in this game where Andre Anthony did a good job setting the edge. And honestly, this is not the absolute worst job doing what he's taught to do, which is setting the edge. It just gets into the idea, and once again, we're going to get into Aranda's film in just a second. This gets into the idea as to if this edge type of play is still viable, okay? Holding the edge, you see, if he would have just extended and held, and once he felt this play, once he feels that this play's going inside of him, it still sounds so weird. But anyway, if you extend, you can fight your way back to make this tackle. But you notice he over-penetrates the play and washes it out. And here's the benefit of extending and just stalemating and not penetrating. Once again, all those terms are so weird. This film study sponsored by OnlyFans. it slows down Najee Harris, okay? Once he sees this defensive end is all the way upfield, he knows I could just plant. Once again, he is not stopping. He is still going full speed through this hole. And you see how easy that is for him? Just to... And that's because Andre Anthony took himself out of the play, but he's taught by the 4-3 scheme to get upfield, set this edge. You see the downside of that, okay? And that just makes this hole that much wider. Boom! I would really like to have this guy back for LSU to run their 4-3 next season. Gah! His number should be retired already. Putt Dorsey, how about it? So, obviously, what do we do to fix it, and how did Dave Aranda defend it? We're going to save that for part 2. Yes, you're going to be shocked at how Dave Aranda defended this compared to how we defended this. Pretty much exact same play. So that's going to be coming up on part 2. Now, obviously, the big question is, can LSU run a 4-3 in 2021? Which brings in a name that is by far the most important name in this entire conversation. And that is, of course, DARONTE JONES. Now, of course, Andre Carter and Blake Baker plays a role into it. I've shared on live streams how I feel about DARONTE JONES. I actually do like him a lot, and I understand there's a lot of people skeptical about him being this first, I guess you could say his first time coaching at the Division I level as a defensive coordinator, coming from the NFL, and then from, he's been a defensive coordinator before, but it's been years. So, yeah, I saw some things in the spring game that he did very innovatively. He did some innovative things in the spring game with his run defense that I thought was really fascinating. But either way, I really do like DARONTE. And yes, LSU, if they do decide to run a 4-3 scheme very similar, and it's not necessarily 4-3, it's more 4-2 because you only run 2 linebackers with the nickel. We all understand that. But yes, of course, LSU, their defense will be better served just because they're going to have another year with a 4-man front. And tomorrow we'll get into the differences with Aranda and the 4-3 and the 3-4 and all that stuff. But, it is very important to know that LSU will be better served. Neil Farrell looked really good in the spring game. They have Joseph Evans, and then Glenn Logan's going to be better. And then Mason Smith, obviously coming into the fold, Jacobian Guillory, and to me, the biggest star of them all will be Jaquelin Roy. It's going to be very fascinating to see how it changes because obviously there's so much technique and discussions that get into this. Now, if this just happens to be your first time watching, obviously I appreciate you guys, of course, coming by. The live streams and all that's fun. But please comment down below because obviously there's a lot of things that you guys disagree with. A lot of you that know way more about football than I do, the coaches and former players that are watching this right now. Obviously there's a lot that I left out about bandit and 4-3 and 3-4 and overfront and underfronts and hammer, nail. There's all these terms that are out there. I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can because that jargon can get very confusing, and I do get a lot of questions about, sharing my knowledge on this very topic, so that's what I tried to do in this video, but obviously comment down below and be nice in the comment section, okay? But yes, before we get into part 2, the LSU 4-3, just by default, by getting Bo Pelini out of there is going to be better, but there are some structural challenges that come along with the 4-3, but there's also structural challenges with the 3-4 as well. So we'll touch into that tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more film study right now, our Elias Ricks film study, I feel is even funner than this one because this dude is an absolute beast, okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! For real, click this film study. You're going to love it. And tonight, shishito peppers. Let's go!